So, what are some of your thoughts on some of the new rule changes with obviously with the pitch clock and the shift and the obviously the base being bigger? Those are like the three big ones.
You look at it from a few things, and the first one is, there's always going to be a debate between the older generation of baseball and I would say the middle generation, and then kind of like my generation. There's always going to
Mm-hmm.
be a debate between that and whether it's good, whether it's bad. Why are we mixing up with baseball? And honestly, I'm for it. I like it. I think the pitch clock, I'm not looking to, speed up the game. But,
Right.
you look at someone like Valdez from the Astros, who his motion was so methodical, where it was a baby rock step, back and forth, back and forth. That's ridiculous. Like, to me, it's unneeded for the game of baseball. And you know what? I can speak to it as a former collegiate pitcher. I get where, you have to have that like feeling of where you need to step on the mound, you have to be mentally ready to go in your own fashion. But that to me drives me nuts.
Right.
But I will say I think it's brought some big positives. And believe it or not, we're going to have this debate all season. You see it on Twitter. And I think the big one is the pitch clock right now. We haven't talked a ton about the bases and the crease, the size, which I think is a good thing. Do you want to see a collision at second base or third base or whatever the case may be at home? Okay, as a common viewer, yes. But for those guys' safety, it's a good thing. I
Right.
also, I kind of want to circle back into the pitch clock a little bit. What I think brings onto the aspect of it is, it's always big on, okay, we've got to find a way to get the youth involved or like them with baseball, which you could go on a whole different aspect with like the blackouts and all that. But I think the big thing about it is you're going to see more stolen bases. We already have. Spring League this year had saw a lot more stolen bases. Plus, I think with the pitch clock adding it in, you have to, you have to get going. You have to, have to be mentally prepared every single pitch. And what I think does is I think it brings an aspect of the game that was dying. Stolen bases, we don't see it anymore. We don't see anyone like Ricky Henderson ever again.
Right.
And you saw it yesterday with opening day. You saw for the first guy that came to the top of my head, Ronald Acuna. Ronald Acuna stole, I believe, the first base of the season. And it's
I
an
think so.
aspect of the game that we're bringing back.
Right. Yeah. I'm in favor of the pitch clock. Obviously, we can debate about the time if there needs to be if it needs to be instead of 15 to be to 20, and then obviously when the runner on base we can make it from 20 to 25. We can have sort of a conversation about that. But yeah, I like the idea of having the a pitch clock is that way because I think at the same time I think it's an advantage for the pitcher than it is for the batter because before the pitch clock was even in the conversation, batters would always like as soon as like the pitcher would go into motion ready to throw it, then be like stop. He's like timeout. So it's like just get in the batter's box, just get in there and swing it. I don't need you to adjust in your gloves and all that just because you may have saw something different in the batter's box or something like that. You know what I mean?
Now, this is where I will get into the conversation and switch it a little bit. One thing when I was, a hitter, and one thing that I was taught, even that, I'm a coach over at Bonneret High School now. And one thing we teach our kid is, okay, let's say you just swung terribly, missed completely. Step out of the box, find a focal point on your bat, and readjust. To
Sure.
me, that's where you kind of are on that new, okay, if I'm teaching hitting now, how do I tell my kid, okay, you got to lock in quick, which obviously the pitch clock rule isn't at the high school level. But it's one of those mental aspects that I think coaches are now going to have to start to deal with where they go, okay, you have to be in the box at 8 seconds. If you don't, which we saw with Rafael Devers yesterday. Rafael Devers is the first person to get called out on the new pitch clock rule. You
Mm-hmm.
have to find a way to mentally lock back in if you just had a terrible at bat, swing, whatever the case is. So that's where it's like that gray area with the pitch clock. And I don't mind it, like I said, and I'm actually in favor for it. I think, I don't like using the words of speeding up the game, but I
Right.
like the aspect of we are working towards, making the game exciting. That's what I kind of am in favor for. And I think this year, especially, which I think is a good thing. We're going to see the game speed up. And I think that actually goes into one of the other things that you could talk about when it comes to the rule changes, the shift. I think, there's going to be people that benefit really well from it. One name that comes at the top of my head got, $500 million defense down in Texas, but Corey Seager. Corey Seager, the guy off the top
Yeah.
of the head, he predominantly is a pull hitter. Well, you take that guy out of the right field position in the shift. I think Corey Seager has a great year this year. I could see him being an all-star candidate this year just because, he already mashes the ball. But why not, you take that aspect out of the game, you could see his average spike. And I know average is kind of a lost statistic in my opinion,
Right.
but it's an aspect you got to look at. And I think there's some other names like what I think Minnesota did with Joey Gallo. Okay, Joey Gallo had an atrocious season last year. I mean, terrible. But I think it's a good risk to take as the Minnesota Twins because they're going into the aspect of, okay, I am going to sign this guy. The shift's gone. He's a predominantly pull hitter. Joey Gallo's big, obviously, problem is making contact. But when Joey Gallo makes contact, he smashes the ball. Joey Gallo is a predominantly pull hitter. Maybe he can squeeze out throughout the season, another 20 to 25 hits just with that shift being gone. I think there's prime examples if you go through the entire National League and AL, you're going to look at it and go, okay, maybe he'll benefit. Another name that comes to mind, Cody Bellinger. As a Cubs hater, I don't like it. I thought, but though you look at it, it's not a bad deal for the Cubs. They signed him to a 1 year, if I remember right off the top of my head, $16.5 million deal. And for someone with the MVP caliber of Cody Bellinger, and you're getting him for that, and someone that, obviously you could go and say, okay, he doesn't make a ton of contact, but